I'm ready to go. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it. Well, welcome everyone. Glad to have you here in Rutherford. Thank you so much for hosting today. We're excited to jump into product. Let's do it.
All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for taking some of your precious time out to join us today. We are going to go through some of the new features that we've released earlier this year, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming next too. So let's go ahead and kick it off. All right. So I haven't, oops, don't want to turn off my camera there. So the agenda is we're going to talk about some of the enterprise-ready features. And then if you haven't noticed, there's a handful of new widgets. They're available in the new widget dashboard, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about these widgets. I want to talk about some of the enhanced operator and labor tracking flows that we've built in, including the multi-ticket closeout flow for the clockout functionality, which is super cool. I really love that feature. And then I'm going to talk about some coming soon features. The first one, first article inspection. Um, uh, I don't know if you guys can raise your hands or not, but it doesn't matter. We're going to get there. But this is just a headlight. If you do first article inspection in your process, you'll be interested in staying to the end to talk about that because I want to hear your feedback. So we're going to go through all of that. We're going to talk a little bit about maintenance mode and ready for work as well. And we'll explain what those are. So in the coming soon section. So likely what we're going to do is sort of kind of run through as many of these. So stop me. I mean, Henry will stop me if you have questions, but stop me if you want to see more. I dive down because the new dashboard widgets are cool, and there's a special secret sauce associated with how we create these dashboard widgets that I'm going to share. All right, so let's just quickly talk about SSO and GovCloud. Not much to show here because it's really hard to show some back-end infrastructure, but we are customer ready and we are CMMC ready. So we have several customers now in GovCloud, more are coming. And one of the things I do want to talk about when you move to GovCloud, it does require, if you're an existing customer, it does require a fresh start. We can't move unvalidated data in a non-GovCloud instance to a GovCloud instance. Sort of violates a couple different policies associated with that. But so it does require a fresh start. But we have a process in place now that we have a couple of customers that have moved over to this system, including some new customers who are starting, straight on GovCloud. So if you're a prospect, this is the time to make the decision of whether or not you need GovCloud or not. And if you're an existing customer, we have a process that can walk you through the flow of being able to migrate all of your machines and everything over to the GovCloud instance. If you know that CMMC or higher regulated like FedRAMP is in your future. Um, Now, obviously, we are going to be continuing to, always innovating and always developing, and so we're going to be incorporating, more controls associated with so our system is CMMC compliant. That take a while, so we're going to be doing that iteratively over the next year or more, since it's a huge process. But we have SSO ready as well. It is compliant with all the SSO providers out there. So if SSO is something you need, just give us a ring to our support call, support@MachineMetrics.com, and we'll get you started on getting that implementation in place. So those are two, we call them enterprise features, but really they're just uh, tighter controls that are needed typically for companies that are larger in nature. Um, but the last thing that I want to show you, I'm going to switch my screens. Let's see if I can do this easily. Okay, I have to stop this. I want to walk you through some of the enterprise widgets that we've built. So there's a lot of dashboard widgets that I want to walk you through, but for this particular screen, I want to show you these widgets. So first, let's talk about configuration. There's two widgets that are here, and really what I'm seeing here is I have the ability to now show multiple site locations. So in this case, utilization data from multiple plants. And so let me just walk you through what that configuration looks like. So I can I can give it a name, all site locations, and I can go through a list of all of the locations that I want in this list. Now I have access to a lot more than what you do, but you'd see access to all of the plants that you have available in your system. And you can see I have scheduling workshop one, scheduling workshop twos. So these are all of our demo scheduling workshops that we have. And I've added them in and it instantly builds out a view of whatever metric measurement I'm looking at. I can look at utilization, parts goal, OEE, availability. Those are the ones that we started off with. And I can either use the default goal thresholds to change the color of the widget that is structured for each location, or I can set some custom goals in place right now. So I can change this to 60, and this will apply for all of the sites. Change this to failure at 40. And as long as I hit save, that functionality will be in place. And so it changes the coloring of whether or not they're there. Now, the interesting thing about this is it allows drill down capabilities. So even though I can see the utilization in this case, metrics at this single view for each plant, I can drill into each individual plant and see the greater details of what's associated with it. So I will see downtime, if I had any other parts information. And then by clicking on this link, I can also open that up to get to that main plant's location. So it allows me to drill down from a high level view of the machine into a low level view and open up that individual scheduling workshops 3 dashboard and all the details that show up for that one. So it becomes really useful and successful for customers or for your enterprise leaders to, understand what's happening at all of their locations and then be able to get access to the more granular data associated with it. So for scheduling workshop 1, you can see I have all this downtime calibrated so I can easily see exactly if I have a lower utilization in this case than I expected, then what are the reasons for that downtime? And so you can navigate to all this information, and then by clicking on this link, go to that particular plant and can continue to drill down to get to the individual machines. All right, so I'll pause there. Henry, if there's any questions that are popping up about the enterprise widgets, let me know because I'm not looking at that view.
No current questions right now, but I'm sure they'll start flowing in soon as they normally do.
All right, so that's one of our enterprise widgets that we've done, but we've also created an aggregated enterprise widgets for our much larger customers. And actually, before I dive into this, let's go to the edit mode and take a look at what's really happening here. So the goal here was it gives me the ability to add a location group. So we have some very large customers that want to look at how regions are actually performing associated with these KPIs. And so here, I'll just go ahead and click on what I've done, is I have selected multiple regions. So scheduling workshop 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I can select other ones. And I've called it, given it a name of what I want this to be. And what this does is it aggregates all of those sites into a single combined widget. So I wanted to look at APAC. I wanted to look at the Americas. I wanted to look at Europe. I may have multiple plants in these locations. I can create a new location group, select the locations that I want to select from this list, and then I can aggregate those plants based on a regional context or any sort of construct that I want into a single widget. Now, when I do that, I can also, now because I'm aggregating multiple locations and multiple sites, I would need to put in these goals associated with what identifies a warning and green to what represents failure. So I can get my measurements down. So let's see here, it's right now, since it's over 60%, it's green. But if I made it 80%, it gets a warning. And so it changes that color right there pretty instantaneously. So let's go ahead and confirm this. And so now when I click on this particular widgets, I still get the drill down, but it starts by showing you all of the individual sites where I have the widgets and their individual goals based on the goals that I structured. And then I can then still navigate, just as I showed you before, into the specific details associated with that widget. So if I wanted to go to scheduling workshop 1, 6, I can just click on it and I can continue to see that data flows in. All of this is live, active, and giving you information across multiple enterprises in a single shot, which makes it super effective for people trying to view things at an enterprise level to see exactly where things are structured, aggregate things for a regional level, and still have that drill down capabilities. And so these enterprise widgets are available to you in your dashboards. So you just click on your dashboards. You can create a new dashboard, add a widget, and you'll see the utilization by location group. That's the aggregated version, and then KPIs by location. That's the other one. And so these widgets are now available for you for those enterprise view. All right, so let's go back to the slide. Let's talk about new dashboard widgets. Now for that, I'm going to stop my share for a second and let's see if there's any questions that are here. None yet, so that's great. So give me a second. I'm going to change my view and show you some additional widgets that we have. You kind of saw my lead in. We have several new widgets that we've created, and I want to walk you through exactly how they work and what's useful about them, because some of these widgets are special purpose. We designed them to solve certain problems that customers have been struggling to get access to over time. Okay, everything's anonymized. Great. Start my share again. All right, so new dashboard widgets. That's where we are right now. We're going to start with the process control widget. All right, so I'm going to go to my dashboard here, and I've created a last 7-day dashboard. So number of new widgets to show here. Let's let everything load up. And so let's talk about this. This is called a continuous process widget. So have you ever had a process or following a Six Sigma process where you run a Kaizen and you've identified a change that you wanted to make maybe on a cell or maybe on a single machine or maybe across your entire plant, whatever that change is. And you want to check and control, basically you want to get to the control phase where you want to ensure that the change that you've made is actually having an impact. And so that's where this new widget comes into place. Now let's go ahead and look at it. So first of all, so assuming that I want to change, in this case, utilization, but I have a series of other metrics that I can manage and control. I can select the date where I've made my change. So in this case, March 1st of 2025. And it's going to baseline this utilization metric of what it was at that point in time. And that's going to give me my baseline measurements right here. I can then enter in a goal. So in this case, my baseline measurement is at 19.3%. And then my goal is I want to achieve, let's go ahead and say, I want to achieve 22% improvement. Okay. Now, now I can select the machine groups that I want to focus on. I can select an individual machine that I want to focus on. So I can narrow the scope to just about anything, but it automatically is baselining that particular utilization metric at what it was when I implemented my change. And I can track how well I'm achieving the goal that I have set for myself. And so let me go ahead and save these changes. And so what this is saying is since March 31st, I have achieved over 22% 9 times out of 89 days of the year. And so I've had some success, and you can see here I achieved it maybe a little bit early on, but I went through a process where I wasn't achieving it until later in this month. And so this becomes a way where I can kind of see my traction with achieving my goal with a change. Now I can make that goal 40% or any change, or I can change the metrics to be either OEE, availability, or performance. But it's a way for you to control and to visualize how well you're improving based on changes that you've done. And so I can create multiple of these widgets and create a dashboard. I can mark them to individual cells. I can change them to be different measurements, but it's a way for looking at what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve when you make your continuous improvement structures and how you can track whether or not you're actually achieving on them. So a number of people have started to use these, customers have started to use these widgets. These were just released about a month ago. And so I definitely think you should play around with this widget because it does give you a nice way of looking at where you are and what you've improved to overall to make sure that your continuous improvements efforts are actually being realized. So that's our continuous improvement widget. Now I'll simplify it a little bit. I'm going to go down to a couple of basic features. We also have this new, very large, very easy to see. I call it the KPI speedometer widget. And it basically gives you an idea of various different measurements, whatever you want to select, to show you how well you're performing. Now, we've also added this feature where you can hide the toolbar at the top here, so you can have a cleaner look and feel across these widgets. But when you edit it, let me just take a look at how it's edited. So this particular widget, I can select various different measurements and metrics. I can select the date range associated with this. So everything on this particular dashboard is the last 7 days. I can decide whether or not I want to show the dial or not. And I can also filter it down to machine groups. So it's a nice, very simple widget to deliver very simple information. And it also profiles automatically whether you're doing better or worse than the time scale, the date range from the previous period. So if I'm looking at the last 7 days, that's what this measurement of utilization is. And it gives me an idea if I'm up or down compared to the previous 7 days. So in this case, I'm down. So I was up higher. So this might be something I want to look into.
Hey, Rutherford,
Um,
question.
yeah.
On the previous widget you reviewed, I think the process control widget, there was a question here regarding how that baseline is established or what the logic is behind that. Is it simply whatever baseline you select or choose, or is there something that is informing it?
Yes. Right now, the baseline, and that's a very good question. The baseline is not selectable, it's automatically selected. We look at the last 60 days of operations to determine that baseline. So, whatever the last 60 days were in terms of behavior for the sets, for whatever the scope of the machines or the machine groups that I've selected, or even the shift that I've selected, it's going to look at the last 60 days and establishes the baseline from that point of view. And, but that's a good question because later on, I'm going to talk about how we develop these widgets, and there's options to improve upon, add features, optimize very easily that we can talk through. Um, okay, so that's the continuous improvement widget. We have the KPI speedometer, but we also have the top five widget. And so the top five widget is showing me, let's go ahead and go to edit mode here. All right, so it gives me a couple different styles of how to look at, but basically it's showing me based on, in this case, the last 7 days, again, since that's the date range that I've picked, my comparison period, it's looking at what are the best performing machines in the last 7 days. So which ones are hitting their utilization rates in order. And I can compare by machine. I can do a number of different features to describe my comparison. I also give you a couple different views. I can give you a leaderboard view that's simple and compact, or I can give you a grid view, in which case usually just there's a little bit more open space and controlled and can be a little bit slimmer. Um, the view of this is showing you either your top five best performing machines, in which case you can call it that, but it can also show you the areas where you need attention. And so it's looking at your least performing machines in that case. And I always prefer the leaderboard view. And so you can add multiple widgets to select either ones. As you can see here on this dashboard, I have the top five utilized machines and the top least utilized machines. And it gives me that list of order so I can understand where are the areas where I can understand how I'm doing well, and maybe I want to dive deeper into understanding why these machines are performing well. And I can also see where I'm not doing so well, where I have machines that are going lower than expected. And so these are nice, simple widgets that are easy to add in and configure it to however you want, and then just kind of create a custom dashboard associated with that functionality. All right, if there's no other questions, I'm going to move down to our downtime Pareto. I'm actually going to make this one a little bit bigger. So let me just drag this one over. There we go. So a downtime Pareto has been a staple in MachineMetrics for a long time, but it technically wasn't a actual downtime Pareto. Didn't have this lovely little curve on the top that shows you the number of instances that occurred across each particular type of downtime. But now we have a downtime Pareto, and it's a drill down one as well. So I can select each category and drill down to see the detail of that particular type and see what machines are performing the best. So it's similar to functionality that we've had before in our report system, but just much more thorough and much more accurate in terms of how it should be presented with that flexibility to drive into these key things. So it's really important to just make sure that we have an understanding of how much downtime that we're tracking and where those problems are. And so this downtime Pareto has its own configuration page as well. You can identify what the primary metric, if you want to look at duration or the instance count, and of course, select your time frame associated with it. Again, since my dashboard here that I'm showing is the last 7 days, I've selected the last 7 days for all of these widgets, so I can see the same time frame associated with multiple widgets to see how my last week has been performed. And the last widget I want to walk you through, see, there's probably a few more that I want to walk you through, but startup delay. So, have you ever wondered when your operators show up for the day, how much time is lost between the actual start of shift and before the machine actually gets started working? And so we have this startup delay widget that can calculate either, for today, for yesterday, and it's going to tell you, it's going to calculate either the total number of hours or the average amount of time where there's a startup delay for each one of the machines that's in scope. So again, I can select, a particular, I can select the day of the week. I can group it by number of different types of machines. I can select either individual machines and I can select shifts. And the whole point is, in this case, I have two widgets here displaying this information. So for my last 7 days, again, for my 7-day dashboard, the total amount of time was I lost, my startup delay was 349 hours. The average was 40 minutes on average for the last 7 days, which is a hefty amount of time. But the part that actually is really interesting is how much did it cost? And so I can put in an hourly rate. So let's just say the burden rate for my machine is $125 per hour. And that average time cost now is going to, I have a view of how much that's going to cost me. And the scarier part is when I look at the total, you can see how much startup delay can actually cost you over time. So it's a simple widget to give you kind of a visibility to some of these key things. And you can see here, I have two widgets, the same widget, but one is configured to show the total hours and one is configured to show the cost per of the total hours. I can add another widget to show the average amount of time, but it just kind of gives you an idea. And this is not like a pure loss of time of costs, but it gives you an idea that if you start it exactly on time every time, you can definitely minimize this cost. And that's really a key piece of information that all of the data and MachineMetrics has been tracking forever. But these new widgets that we're introducing just gives you another viewpoint of how to look at that information and also understand the impact of that. It's hard to look at 349 hours to understand the impact. It's a lot easier to see, hey, there's an opportunity to have saved $43,000, which I would imagine most people on this call would like to do. And so these widgets just give you a different view of the data that's been collected already.
We did have one question about the Ferd regarding the downtime Pareto widget. The question was, is that created in reports first and then generated in or as a widget, or are you creating this right in the widgets part of the product?
Very good question. This is created right in the widgets part of the product. It's called the downtime Pareto widget. So you don't have to create a report first and introduce a report. You just create this widget and go ahead and select your time frames. So let's go ahead and look at last 2 weeks, for example. I want to look at duration and you hit save. And then I can see here, I have another widget that just got added in. I'm just going to make it bigger. And there we go. Brand new widget added, no report builder needed. Any other questions that I should field right now before I move on?
Yeah, there's one, and this might be more so a forward-looking question, but is there any plans for widgets around mean time between failure or mean time to repair?
That is a really good question, and I'm going to answer it this way. So yes, we do have plans. A lot of these widgets that you can see in this area were created by customer request. So let's talk about how we created them. So you can see some of them are listed as experimental just because we're wrapping up the testing to make sure everything's solid and work and meets the customer need. So some of these, it's met the customer need, we just haven't changed the flag. Others, like the startup delay widget, I'd like more feedback on customers about what it needs to do. And so while it's a very simple widget, I like more feedback on it. Let's talk about how we built them. Um, Most of these widgets are actually built without any engineers being harmed, maimed, used at all. We've been using and experimenting with a new process. If you've heard some of the AI development technology, it's called Vibe coding, VIBE coding. And essentially, we've created a series of tools on our back end that make it a lot easier for us to understand what the data. So we have an AI engine that now understands our API structure, and we can just simply ask it to write us a query, and it will return all the information. The second step that it does, which is using an agent-based infrastructure, is we can say, hey, build me a widget to represent this data. And actually, I can do that in all one query, and it's going to return a widget that looks and represents itself in a certain way based on the data that I've requested. And because we've made it so much easier for us to build and to structure some of these widgets with the existing data that we have, we often will grab sessions with our customers. So we've done it a couple times. We talk about what information they want to see and how they want it structured, how it wants to be filtered, and we just kind of in real time create this widget. And we make updates to it. Maybe there's additional data that we need to get, but we do it in live in real time with our customers, you guys on the phone, to make sure we not just we don't want to give you the first thing that you say that you want, and not that everybody here on the call knows what they want, but I want to whittle it down to the thing that is actually going to drive a behavior change or drive an action, and something that takes a little bit of back and forth with seeing the data and making sure it actually meets the decision frameworks that you need to make or the action that you need to be using this to trigger off of. And so a lot of these widgets were done in that process, and we've evolved our process over time. So it has taken us, it's taken something that may take us days or weeks down to days, and we're trying to get it down to hours. And so a lot of, like, for example, this continuous improvement tracker, this one where you can identify your goals and set your timeframes. This met a very specific customer need, who was moving his entire team to a Six Sigma process but didn't have a control mechanism. And so we built this widget to respond to his control mechanism. And so the reason why I'm saying this is one piece of the what's new that I'm not talking about directly during the session is something that we call the new app framework. Right now, it's more tools for us internally, but the goal is to make these tools for our customers to use externally. And so that process that I described, where we have an AI engine that you can just type a prompt to about the data that you want, that goes out, fetches the information, and then displays it into a widget. The end version of that we like to implement is being able to turn that widget into a dashboard widget, just like all these other widgets that you have, and you've created it yourself. And so, of course, my widget display is not showing up. That's okay. You saw what it looks like. And so one of the things that I invite you to, if you have a custom widget that you want, and actually, let me just back up a second. Why are we doing this? Why did we create this app framework? Well, we've been moving down this journey to create functionality that helps you fulfill your execution, your manufacturer execution system, so to speak, and add that on. So the ERP integrations that we've been doing, the job tracking interfaces that we've been updating and to make it a lot easier to use. Well, all those are those core four features that you may have heard myself and Graham talk about before. They are features that most customers need, and most customers need in the same way. But every organization is different. And so we built this app framework and these tools, to make it easier to customize and to meet your specific needs. So, so the app framework is our backend system that allows us to create these applications very quickly. We've ingested a lot of AI technology into it, so it uses much more higher intelligence to pull the information and eventually interpret the information. So the next What's New webinar series, I'll talk about that. But I encourage you to contact us at support@machinemetrics.com and ask for a vibe session with one of our product team. And we'd be happy to get on board with you, get on a phone call, and start taking and creating a widget that's custom to you. I'm sure there's a lot of questions that came out of that conversation.
Yeah, there's been a few that have popped up. I think one of the questions here is around widget availability. So some are obviously marked as experimental there, others are not. Is there a timeline of release of these widgets? Are they all available, some available? What does that look like right now for our existing customers?
Yes. If they should have been available earlier, I think as of yesterday, but I'll double check. Maybe we haven't turned maybe we haven't turned them on just yet, to make them fully available to everyone. But if they aren't, I will make them all available, shortly after. Actually, my bad. I'm going to be reviewing them tomorrow morning with my lead engineer, and we were going to make a yay final yes no decision to make all of these available. So if you don't have availability to them today, before the end of this week, all of these will be available.
Awesome. And one other good question just came in regarding how we present these widgets. So the question is, how does the system present widgets and dashboards that apply to each line, factory, etc., versus widgets and dashboards that an individual user creates for one-time or periodic analysis?
Good question. So um, all of these widgets sit on a dashboard. And so you can create a dashboard. Here, actually, this dashboard that I've created, and for example, I've created this dashboard, I've marked it as access is private. So only I have access to it. And so I can create and play with this dashboard all day long, and it's only available to me. If I wanted to make this dashboard available to others, that's where I go to my actions and I can say make public. Now, when I do this, then everyone will have access to this dashboard. It will still be, I will be the owner of the dashboard, but everyone can have access to it. And that's when you want to change, when you've actually are playing around with a set of widgets, and it's not ready. You can keep it private, and then you can make it public when you've got it right and when you have information that you want to share with others so they don't have to recreate a dashboard for themselves. Now, one thing I will say, when you make the dashboard public, all information has to be public. So if you've used the report builder to create a custom report, then these reports, for example, need to be public as well, or else they won't display. So that's just the thing that you got to pay attention to. And are there any other questions that I should go on before I move on?
Just one more here regarding the custom widget creation tools. Is this something that there'll be a release timeline for as well?
So we're building it with a series of AI tools, and we've gotten them. If you've kept in the news of AI tools, sometimes they hallucinate. And so the way we structured it is we're about 90, we're somewhere between 95 and 99% sure that the data and what you ask for is going to be accurate, because we're using our APIs and we're figuring out ways that we can control that. But we're still working on making that process so it's 100% confidence that the data that you're asking is going to be accurately presented. Um, and so that's going to take a little bit more time. So I don't have a release date in place, but if you are interested in beta testing what we've built so far, please just send an email to support to our support email. I'm going to say it so many times today. Reference this meeting, what's new, and say, I'd like to be a part of the new AI beta stuff. You can just call it stuff because there's a lot of things in there. And then when we have something functionality, you'll be the first people we reach out to experiment with it. Some stuff is tools that, I mean, just goes to our database, figures out the data that you want, and then presents you a widget as I described. But there's some things that are actually kind of exciting. We have one project that we're playing with using these LLM systems where an AI does an analysis of the data and the problem that you've identified. So for example, why was this machine, why was my utilization lower last week than the previous week? We're still working on it, but we're trying to get this system in place to answer those kinds of data while profiling all of your data and your information. And to get to answers that are actually actionable as opposed to just, that's interesting. So if you want to experiment with these two new tools, we're building them. They're not in my coming soon section, as you may have noticed. They're just things that we're trying to get right, and we're really pushing hard on integrating AI into our overall platform at every level. But they're I don't have a date for them yet because they're still we're still in the experimental phase. So long answer to a short question, which is not yet.
Totally fair. And yeah, I think the vibe coding session is definitely an interesting proposition for specific use cases or ideas that people have. So, Eric, I can shoot you an email if that sounds interesting.
Did I stop the share?
I think you may have.
I didn't mean to do that. Okay, there we go. All right. Let's see what's next on my agenda, and I have a little bit of time left. Um, all right, enhanced operator and labor ticket tracking. So I'm going to go a little bit faster through this. I am not going to show you this live just because there's a number of states that need to be managed. Um, but one of the problem domains that we had is so we're moving the operator dashboard to understand new things, and our eventual target is to really have the operator dashboard help operators manage multiple machines. Now, we're not there yet, and hopefully we'll get there before the end of the year. But managing multiple machines, as probably many of you, you have operators that are managing two, three. We have one customer that has operators managing 7 machines. They have a high level of automation in place, but still, knowing where you need to be is an important thing. And so that's the target trajectory that we're going for. In the meantime, we're doing baby steps to get there. And so one of the processes that we just recently released is called a clock in and clock out functionality. Now, if you have Infor Visual or Epico Kinetic as your ERP, and we've done an integration with you, this functionality takes on a new measure because you kind of need that clock in and clock out functionality in those particular ERPs. But even if you don't have those ERPs, some of this functionality is really exciting for you. So let me just walk you through what that process looks like. So I'm going to sign in. So if you want, we have a new option to sign in with the employee PIN code as opposed to selecting your name from a list. And so you just put in the PIN code and then you're in. Nice little welcome screen. And then let's start my work. So we've updated the user experience for starting jobs just to make it a lot bigger and easier to use your fingers. So you just, when you have the production scheduling system in place, you'll identify what job is scheduled to be next up. You can always see the other jobs that are scheduled for this particular machine in case you wanted to select another job. But I just want to select the next job up. We now have kind of like, I'll call it the traveler page. So it gives you short information about what the job is. And then you can identify if you want to set it up and start this job in production or in setup. So I'm going to go ahead and start in production. And so that's how I started my job. So I've clocked in, I've started a new job, and time goes by. I've done all of my work. And now I want to sign out for the day. So it's the end of my shift and I want to go home. All right, so I'm going to hit sign out. So the normal flow for signing out of a job and submitting a labor ticket. These labor tickets, if you have an ERP integration, flow directly into your ERP. So you don't need to start jobs and start working MachineMetrics and then do the same thing on your ERP terminal. You can do it all in one place with our ERP connector. And I'm going to submit this job. Okay, it's going to ask me, am I clocking out for the day? And yes, it's the end of my shift, so I do. And what it's going to do, it's going to look for any other open labor tickets that I have on any of these machines. So I mentioned earlier that I want to help our operators manage multiple machines. Well, in this case, I'm looking throughout the entire system and I'm looking for any other open labor tickets because if I'm leaving for the day, I want to close out all these labor tickets. And so I have CNC1 where I was starting a setup. My setup is incomplete. So I'm going to submit the work that I've done. I had 1 reject and 2 good parts, but the setup is incomplete. So I'm going to pause my setup until I come back in the morning. And it clears that labor ticket. Then I can click on this one. This job I completed on another machine, and that job is completed. And now I'm ready to clock out, and there I'm gone. So clock in and clock out is needed for Infor Visual and Epicor Kinetic ERP integrations. But if you don't have those ERPs, because it allows your team now, if they're managing multiple machines or starting labor on multiple machines, it allows them to close out of all those labor tickets in one fell swoop, in one single interface. So that's what's really nice about the clock in and clock out functionality that's been released. Any questions, Henry, on that?
No, none have popped up for this so far.
Okay, awesome. Great. I love that. All right, so we kind of covered these few things. So the redesigned select job flow. Let's talk about coming soon. And I have about 10 minutes before we go into a Q&A session. So let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. First article inspection, ready for work. Let's do ready for work first. All right. So this is coming soon. It's going to come in pieces over the next quarter and into Q3. But it's really important for us to track and to categorize as much time as humanly possible when we're monitoring data for machines. So we really want to know, especially now that we've integrated with several customers' ERP, we understand the construct about what jobs they're doing, like the work orders and how many parts are needed. And so we are creating a new metric. It's probably going to be called waiting for work or ready for work. But the concept is the machine is idle. It doesn't have any work running on it. And it's in a shift when you've planned for work to run on this machine. And so we're going to be automatically categorizing that time when the machine is in a shift schedule where it's supposed to be doing work and there's no work ready for it. And that just means it's waiting for work to be done. We're going to give you the time associated with that. Now, the nice thing about this is now we know that this machine's available. It's open for work. Just needs an operator to throw something on it so it can start cutting chips. And so you'll be able to build a report in the report builder to understand how much time is being used when it's just the machine is waiting for something to be done to it. But it's capable, it's not being maintained, all those good things. So to understand that it's ready for work, so you just need to sign in. I'm just going to walk you through this flow and you'd start a job, blah, blah, blah. Actually, hold on a second here. Yeah. You do all the stuff. And then as soon as it knows what job it's working on, it goes back to our normal base. Okay. So one thing that I wanted to point out is, let's say a job starts running on a machine and we don't know, MachineMetrics doesn't know what kind of job it is, but we know the machine is running. And we've done our setup process to understand, warm-up cycles. So the machine, if it's doing a warm-up cycle, that's still, ready for work or waiting for work. But let's say it's running a job and we don't know what job it is. And that could be a situation where the operator started running the machine, but they haven't, taken the time to log that they're working on this particular work order or this particular job of this work order. And so once we have ready for work state decided on, then the unknown job is going to have this nice little feature where even though I started the work maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes ago, I can now assign unknown job. And that's really just as simple as me signing in and then selecting the job that is actually running. And what that will do is it will start that job when the machine started running. And so now all the data associated with when you started that work is going to be set up exactly when the machine started working. And so this is a problem that many of our customers run into where operators maybe they're busy, they're moving on the machines, and they forget to log their work appropriately at the right times. This allows them to kind of have a way out, so to speak. It's kind of a get out of a data recording purgatory very easily. And so very simple process to assign the job on a piece of project, a work that's already started, and the operator can do it themselves. Okay, and I'll show you one last thing. Maintenance mode. Oftentimes you have machines that are in the shift schedule, but they're not running because they're being maintained. And that can be It can be maintained for several days, it can be maintained for several hours, or just a few minutes. But it affects your calculation associated with OEE and utilization because we're expecting this machine to be doing work. But if it's not because it's being maintained, then there's a couple of things that we can do here. So one is enter maintenance mode, and we can set this time to be now or start of the when the machine was last idle, and we'll tell you how much time that was a long time ago. So if the machine was idle a long time ago and it was because it was entering maintenance mode, you can set it back or you can set it for now. You can identify what type of maintenance is it. Is it unplanned or planned? And can start maintenance mode. Now with every display, so your current shift dashboard, on the operator dashboard, but any display where we have information about multiple machines, now this is now listed as it's in maintenance mode, and it starts calculating the time that it's in maintenance mode. And it kind of basically pulls this out of your metrics associated with OEE and utilization because now this machine is not planned to be actually working during that shift schedule. So all the reporting is updated as well on the back end, so you can get accurate information. Now, because this is creating this as maintenance mode is going to create an event, you can go into workflows and you will be able to then trigger active workflows associated with entering maintenance mode. So you can have connected to a webhook that can talk to your maintenance management system. Or if you have MaintainX, we have an automatic trigger that can connect to MaintainX, but you can create maintenance mode tickets out of this trigger point. So it really kind of connects together in this overall workflow, starting with when things are in or out of maintenance. And then it updates your measurements accurately. And then if you want to get out of maintenance mode, just simply sign in and then you leave maintenance mode. Very easy. Okay. Any questions before I move on to the next topic?
Yeah, in regards to maintenance mode there, is there any possibility of leveraging data from MaintainX to inform that?
Yes, the other direction. So being able to trigger maintenance mode from a work order coming from MaintainX. Let's talk about that. That's not something that we have on our current radar to do, but there's so many things about the MaintainX integration that I want to do. Let's just let's talk about that workflow. So whoever that is, just send a message to Henry and let's talk about that implementation. So when we build it, we can make sure that it can both trigger, so send out a request, but also be triggered to go into maintenance mode from MaintainX.
Great. I'll shoot an email over to James and maybe we can follow up on that. Great question.
Yeah, we love that. I love doing things with maintenance. For those who don't know, I mean, there's a lot you don't know about my background, but I spent a good number of years building and deploying ERP systems in the 90s. And I also spent a lot of time building out maintenance systems. So Maximo was my package du jour. For those of you who are old school and remember Maximo, I did a lot of that work. And it was fun. So anything with maintenance, just call me up and I'm down to do it. A few minutes last, the last thing I want to show, I'm going to go back to my presentation over here, is first article inspection. This is coming soon. So let me go into slideshow mode here. Before I go into it, first article inspection is a process that can be enabled in existing MachineMetrics, but it's a little bit clumsier than I'd like. And I think there's a flow that I'd like to kind of walk you guys through that we're currently building. So I would say as a show of hands, who does first article inspection? But I don't know if you guys can put your hands up on the chat. But a number, oh, hey, there we go. Okay. Okay, got a bunch of hands raised. All righty. All right. This is going to be up your alley. And since we're building this, and I know we only have about 10 minutes left, but I'd love your feedback. So if you want a more detailed, in-depth view of what we're building for first article inspection and how we're thinking about it, please contact us and we can have a special session with you. But let's walk you through what we're thinking. So a couple of things here. I have my operator dashboard. I have this new screen. Let's call this the inspector dashboard, and then my current shift dashboard. And so I want to show you what happens in all these screens because they're interconnected. So in this screen, it's nice and yellow, so I'm completing my setup and I'm ready to move forward with doing a first piece inspection. So I've got my first piece made, one piece made over here. All right. So you click it, in this case, we're still imagining it, but you click submit work and it says, hey, you haven't submitted a first piece inspection. So do you want to send it for inspection? And so I know the screen is a little small, but I needed to show you all three screens. So I'm going to send for inspection. All right, so what I'm physically going to do is I'm going to click this button to send for inspection. And you notice a few screens all change here. And then I'm going to walk my piece over to the inspection area and drop my part off with the traveler. And so now what's happening here is we're tracking time from the time that I completed my part and before the inspector actually picks it up to do the inspection. So this becomes a piece of time that's going to be a new measurement that you can report on, which is awaiting inspection. So a few things here that changed. The operator dashboard is going to show awaiting inspection, and it's going to start tracking the amount of time that it's been waiting in that state. A new inspection ticket shows up on the inspector dashboard for them to do work. And then you can see here in the current shift dashboard, it says awaiting inspection. So you know, so if you see a lot of cards on your current shift dashboard saying awaiting inspection, it's probably time to hire more inspectors. But be that as it may, this is the first screen that you see. So we're tracking the amount of time for awaiting inspection, and that's a new KPI that you'll be able to report on. So the inspector picks up the card and inspection begins. The operator dashboard says inspection in progress. Current shift dashboard shows inspection in progress. And now we're tracking how much time it's taking the inspector to inspect this part. Whether that means they need to put this in a giant machine and vision and lasers and all that stuff, or if they have to run tests on calipers, it's going to connect, it's going to track the amount of time. Again, this is another KPI, inspection in progress, that you'll be able to report on, or the inspection process, how long it takes. And then let's just go through the happy path. Let's say the inspector improves the item. Well, then the inspection's approved. And now we're still tracking time for how long it takes from when the inspection's been approved before the machine goes into production. And the reason why we're looking at these slices of time is because I want to give customers the information about where, because that machine is idle throughout this entire period because you can't change the setup and it's not cutting chips, it's not making money, and that's fine. But you want to track where your time is being spent. And the inspection improved, but the machine is still not working is a really important measurement to understand. So you can understand how much time it takes in the delay for when an inspection is approved for the operator to get started, to know about that information, to know that the inspection is approved, to pick up the part, and then to move it into production. And so tracking those periods of times helps give you insight to decide if you need to minimize that time or what things you can do to change that time. Now, each one of these states that I've had a change to will also trigger notifications through our system. So depending on how you have notifications set up, if you have an operator who's managing like 7 machines and he has to do first piece inspection on all of them and needs to get started, well, being notified would be helpful so they can know, okay, hey, inspection's ready to go. I can go get that part and get that machine running. So these are just pieces of information that can help drive better behaviors to make sure your machines are operating as consistently and as reliably as possible. Okay, which takes us to QA. 6 minutes left for QA, and it looks like a lot of people stayed, so that's great. Actually, let me go back to my screen share. Oops, yeah, I'm showing too much. Let me stop this. Okay, never mind. Uh, Henry, any other questions pop up?
Yes, we've got a couple pop up here, and if anyone else has other questions, please let us know. We've got a couple minutes here to get to them. The first one is regarding downtime. Is there a way for the operators to enter downtime reasons from previous days?
Yes, absolutely. And just give me a second while I figure out what I did wrong with my machine. There we go. That's what I did wrong.
We're
Uh,
back. So yes, we can
le-
absolutely categorize previous downtimes.
yeah, let me show you a quick way of how to do that. So, um, when you want to categorize downtimes that already happened, Fastest way to do that is go to your machine where the downtime is, click on the downtime tab, and then you'll see this is kind of a really powerful hidden feature. It's called categorize downtime. It opens up a new screen and you can select your date range. So let's say I want to look at the last 7 days of downtime. It's going to show you all the different downtime, what's been categorized or not been categorized. And I can actually bulk categorize them as a group. I mean, maybe I don't want to do that, but maybe there's a reason to do that. But you can go back and you can go back through history pretty far back and identify, downtime that you want to categorize. And so this is a really powerful tool for a supervisor. This is not really an operator tool, but it's a really great tool for a supervisor to go back and look at historical downtimes and then get those categorized very easily and in group in many cases.
Great. And question regarding inspections. Can the operator be the inspector as well in MachineMetrics?
That is a very good question.
Or how would they grab that inspection area? How would they jump into that?
I mean, we didn't design it for that particular use case in mind, because usually if the operator's doing the inspection, that time is just part of setup, and that's kind of how we currently work. Because usually if the operator is doing the inspection themselves, then once they get that first piece, they're going to be inspecting it right then and there, and then they're going to move it forward. So they're going to be actively engaged during that process. And we could break it out so they can keep track of the amount of time that they use that's separate from setup, especially if the inspection takes a while. But that's not the way we're designing our first use case. Um, right now, we're just assuming that, if it's a different person's role, then we want to track that time because, now you have two people that have to communicate, and that could create some time delays. If it's just one person doing it, there's no inherent time delay that could be created because of first piece inspection or because it's different people. But let's continue talking about that use case. You can help me understand what's valuable and what information you want out of it. But that's not what we're designing the first use case for.
Great. And one question here regarding the relationships of dashboards versus custom dashboards. So, is there functionality to take existing dashboards to create a custom dash while still utilizing the existing dashboard's functionality?
Um, so let me just make sure I understand what we're talking about. Let's get some pictures in place. So what you're talking about is, let's say the daily production. This is new too. I didn't get a chance to go over it, but do check out our daily production dashboard. Um, but this is well, actually, let me use a different one. Let's use the current shift dashboard. So is the question that if I have this current shift dashboard, and come on, Wi-Fi. Okay, there we go. Can I take this current shift dashboard and incorporate that into a configurable dashboard, which is in here in this view? Is that the question?
That seems to be the question from how I understand it. Yes. Catch
Ah,
myself, we're off there.
so short answer is currently no. We are working on converting, and I think we're like 90% of the work is done to convert some of our current shift dashboards over into widget-based dashboards. So we are thinking that way. Um, but it's going to be for certain ones. So for example, um, the current shift dashboard is a great example, but if you go to our labs, there's a handful of new labs that we've introduced. Really hard to go through all of them, but the work order dashboard, for example, these are prototypes for what we're going to do. So whenever we have widgets that are repeating based on a machine or based on stations that's a feature that's coming up, then we are turning that functionality into a widget that can be included into the dashboard. And so the best way to give you a picture of what I'm talking about here, and I think let me do it with a new dashboard here. I'll just do the KPI by location. Let's go data range and see if I can. Oh, I have everything anonymized. Okay, well, I'm not going to select the widgets, but in this view, I'm creating multiple widgets based on these selections of these different dashboards. And so it's going to look something like this, where you can create a multi-machine widget into an existing dashboard. And that's going to show up as a widget structure like this. So you can take a machine. So the thing that's coming soon-ish is going to be the current shift dashboard or a variation on a theme into a widget structure similar to how we've integrated the enterprise widgets. And it'll look like this, and then you'll be able to add other widgets on top of this.
Great. And I guess one last question here. We're getting up here on time, but downtimes, can we automatically categorize downtimes according to machine faults?
100%. Wait, first of all, who asked that question? I'm going to pay that guy. So yeah, we've had this automation functionality for quite a couple of years now, for 2 years, and it's just gotten significantly better. We've actually are doing a major update that should be available probably in the next month or two, where the user interface is being updated. But it's and the way to select the routines for how you select which faults trigger an automatic downtime classification is just getting a little bit of TLC. So that is already in place. So if you're not using the auto downtime classification functionality, please contact your SDM or send the email to support@MachineMetrics, because that's functionality that we have existing today. It's not net new, and we're just improving it. And so that you can definitely do that. And it's a really cool system. If you have any kind of modern machine where we're connected to the controller of the machine, then we can get alarm faults, we get so much information, and you can use you can set things up so you can reduce the amount of work that operators need to do to get your downtime classified. So yes, is the answer. We have that feature.
Awesome. Well, that takes care of our existing questions here.
Wonderful. All right. Well, to close out, I really thank you guys for staying with me the entire hour. I saw there's a good number of people that stayed through to the end, probably because they wanted to see what I was talking about for first article inspection or first piece inspection. But thank you for taking time out of your day. A lot of cool stuff coming up. If you like the custom widgets or the new widgets that we displayed, they'll be available to you shortly. And if you want to create a new widget, just send us an email and we'll schedule a vibe coding session with you. And if you want to if you want to give me more feedback on first piece inspection and how we should build it, say, I want it this way. Let's schedule a time where we can talk about it. All right. Thank you. And you guys have a great rest of your afternoon.
And thanks so much, Rutherford. Appreciate it. We'll get out the recording to everyone tomorrow. Thanks so much, everyone.